This is a bungalow with a 1960s bungalow and a pitched roof, which is about as simple as a pitched roof can be. So from the outside we can see that it is covered in interlocking concrete tiles. Might as well talk about the chimney a little bit. It's a brick chimney which has been rendered up to that sort of projecting drip course, but you can just about work out that the render top part of it is falling away, and one of the bricks to the reverse, right hand side is disintegrating as well. Anyway, the chimney needs an overhaul, but the roof looks fine. Attached to the chimney we've got an aerial, and we know that the pigeons like to sit on the aerial and poo on the roof, and this creates this very nice mossy substrate, or rather it creates fertiliser that moss likes to go in. That's what I'm trying to say. And now we've got a very mossy roof, especially under the aerial. There's all the moss, and it looks like we've got a lump of mortar which has fallen off the chimney, also sitting on the roof. Anyway, this moss is going to tumble down the roof and accumulate in the gutters. There it is. So these gutters are full. There's nowhere for the moisture to go or the rainwater to go. That downpipe at the end there is blocked. So we're basically putting these gutters under a lot of strain, and they're stretching, and joints coming apart and leaking, and that's dripping onto the conservatory roof. So it would be a good idea, clear out the gutters and downpipes and clear some of that moss off the roof to minimise the amount of blocking up that's going to happen in the near future. And here is our roof frame, which is very simple and in pretty damn good condition. But what have we got then, apart from it being out of focus? There's a roof ridge, and the rafters are nailed onto the roof ridge, and they're all joined on. No sign of any stress with them pulling apart. The rafters are then supported on these purlins, which extend through the roof, so they're supporting the rafters and providing a bit of sideways lateral bracing, one each side of course. There they go, and sitting in the internal skin, or the load-bearing skin of the cavity walls. And we've got these struts here, so they're taking the weight off the middle of the purlins where there's a joint there, and hopefully they're taking it down to some sort of masonry structure below. I think we can probably just about see there's a partition under that, under the foot of those struts. Further lateral bracing across the roof frame is provided by these timbers called ceiling joist binders. So you've got those one each side, and then a slightly unfamiliar timber comes into play over there, or over there, don't know what you call it. So what we would normally see, or normally like to see, is the rafters, feet of the rafters being tied onto the ceiling joists to pull the roof frame together from one side to the other. The ceiling joists obviously terminate halfway through the roof void. Excuse me, let's get out there. There they are, where they're nailed together. But you've got this extra timber, I don't know what it's called. It probably has a name. But the rafter ends have a little bird's mouth joint, and they're sitting on a sort of trimmer, binder, brace, whatever it's called, that sits on top of the ceiling joists. So it's not quite a wall plate because it's not sitting on top of the walls, but seems to be doing the same sort of thing. So the rafters are nailed onto that, it is nailed onto the ceiling joists, and the three bits are then pulling themselves together. So ultimately we've got a nice roof frame with nothing really to criticise. So the problems with this roof lie elsewhere, and they are as follows. Right, we've got this old sarking felt here, which is mostly in pretty good condition, but the part that disintegrates first is the exposed edge above the gutter, where you can see down there. Shall I zoom in a little bit? How do I zoom in? There we go. See, it's going white and you can see a bit of light down there. The idea of this material then, or any underlay really, is that it extends out of the roof space and into the gutter, so that any rainwater that gets blasted under the tiles doesn't enter the roof space, it runs down the top side of that underlay and out into the gutters beyond, which either before or after this we'll see are blocked anyway. But this isn't happening anymore because we can see down there, can we see down there that there we go, the underlay is deteriorating along its bottom edge. Now it's stopping short, it's actually stopping inside the roof space, so any rainwater that does get blasted under the tiles and runs down the top side of the underlay will now drip inside the roof, where it's at risk of causing timber decay. Okay, so what do we do about that? Excuse me. That's a bit of light. Oh, excuse me again. Bit of light coming through the roof there. It's got a few little holes in it too. So back in business. So what one might suggest is that our client re-roofs with a view to replacing this underlay with a new one. But that's going to be very expensive. And is the defect big enough yet to warrant the cost? I think probably what I'll just do is suggest it to her and she can decide then whether she wants to do that now or later. The other little problem now with this roof is it has the odd, rather rampant woodworm infestation. So you can see that there's a little collection of dusty material sitting on that beam binder underneath the foot of the rafter, and then just to the side of it you can see a couple of little dots of dust where woodworm have, well, they're beetles literally, have come out of the little holes and pushed all that dust out in front of them, and that's called frass. And on the underside of that piece of timber, sitting on the insulating material, you can see lots more little piles of dust. So, and it goes on over there. So this end of the roof we've got quite a rampant, that's my head, quite a rampant woodworm infestation. Yes, so it'd be a good idea to get that sprayed before insulation gets topped up, because you've got about 100mm of insulation in here at the moment. Presently we've got no roof space ventilation either. That could be an issue. So if insulation is topped up, because it's about 100mm now, that goes up to 270mm as it should, then you start getting a much bigger contrast between the nice warm living accommodation below and a much colder roof space, because none of the or very little heat is getting out of the living accommodation into the roof space. So that air that does manage to find its way through is warm and moisture laden, and those surfaces will be very cold, and then you start getting fairly major condensation problems, and that's going to start dripping down into the roof and causing problems as well. So what it could do, this place, is further modernisation in respect of topping up for insulation and then providing ventilation to compensate for the amount of additional condensation that will probably be caused. 280mm cavity walls with a pebble dash render finish, and this is perhaps the only interesting bit. We've got a gutter up above, and we've got no cracking in the wall, nothing of interest going on, and we don't know what's on the other side of the neighbour's fence. A couple of strange little fixings through the wall, and the reason I mention all this is because around about here there's a damp spot internally. It is just a spot. So let's go and have a look. And here we have that corner. Down there, if I can squeeze in, here we have, quite often helps if I take my glasses off. It's a bizarre situation. I can see better without them on than with them on. Well, a fairly dynamic little damp patch with lots of efflorescence and blistering plaster. So I don't know why that's there. We do know that the gutters up above have a tendency to leak. I couldn't see them leaking at that point, but they are full to overflowing, so possibly there's lots of water sploshing down the wall at certain times. Cavity walls are usually free of obstructions, except once you get to the bottom of the cavity, there might be anything in there, mightn't there? There could be, obviously lots of mortar droplets, so possibly you don't have a cavity wall down there anymore if it's full of mortar. So maybe it's just a typical case of lateral penetrating dampness, but it does seem to be a bit odd that that's the only spot of dampness I can find. I can't find a boiler in the house, and if you can't find a boiler in the house this age, but you can find radiators, the answer is usually that there's a back boiler. So this would presumably be it. So you have a fairly regular looking fireplace, and maybe we pull that away. Oop. We've got some gubbins, and usually with a back boiler it's going to be a backsea Bermuda, and that's what that says there. Backsea Bermuda inset 2. I don't really know what any of that means particularly, but back boilers are generally old and therefore it would be fairly energy inefficient, so it might be, if we were to look it up, probably something like 70% efficient. So good grounds for putting in a new boiler on energy efficiency grounds. And while we're on the subject of services, we've got a light pendant there with old-fashioned twin flex wiring, so there's no earth in there, so that makes it moderately dangerous. If we go and find the consumer unit, or the thing instead of the consumer unit, there it is. I mean, not my area of expertise, assuming I have an area of expertise. So that looks like an old fuse box which has been souped up with 4 little circuit breakers. So better, I suppose, than better than a fuse box, but probably not as good as a modern consumer unit. So anyway, I suppose with some inevitability I will be suggesting my customer gets an electrician to have a look at this place. And old tilt and turn windows, very complicated, but failed double glazing there. Right, I've taken the glasses off because bizarrely, I have a little screen with me there, I'm looking at the screen, not the lens. I can see better without them. Yeah, so a nice little bungalow. Structurally it's sound, isn't it? I don't think you can argue with that, but needs modernisation. Arguably it needs re-roofing. That's a lot of money to spend though to solve a problem which hasn't really started yet, because I can't see any damp stains internally because of a failing underlay. Also, I suppose, if the tile covering is in good condition, the extent to which you're going to get wind-blown rain penetration is going to be minor. So I think you need to have a good reason to re-roof at this stage, but obviously I'm going to alert my customer to the need probably to re-roof, then I suppose get the electrics checked, and that boiler over there probably fine, but energy inefficient. That's all I've got to say really.